The state of Star Wars right now is a pretty sad one, to be totally honest. Once renowned the world over, the franchise has sunk into the fucking gates of Hades for, whatever Disney's done to it. The Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy is divisive to say the very least about it. This division was really there from the start, but it really kicked up a notch with 2017's The Last Jedi, the second chapter in the Disney trilogy and the eighth chapter of the franchise overall. Now, there were a lot of people who loved it and many, many people who hated it. For its portrayal of original characters, to the really pointless storylines, to, well, a lot of other stuff, to be totally honest. So with that in mind, I thought I'd list off 10 of the most obvious plot failures of that movie, to really show just how broken a film it is. Yes, I'm aware this topic's been done to death, but what can I say? There's a lot to talk about here. So with that in mind, here are 10 of the most obvious failures of Star Wars The Last Jedi. It's not going to be chronological and I'm not going to go through the entire movie, but I will jump around here and there to point out several things. And spoilers for the film if you haven't seen it, obviously. So, with that in mind, let's get right into it. Number 10, the title crawl's first line. Yes, the first line of the first thing you see in the film has problems. The First Order reigns. Now, the state of the galaxy is always important in Star Wars for really getting a bearing of where the story is taking place. For the original trilogy, it wasn't really a problem because that's where the story was starting off. By nature of this film being a sequel, you expect it to really, carry on the tradition of setting up the universe in such a way that makes sense given the characters and the storyline. Now, The Force Awakens really scrubbed away a lot of that, but it doesn't mean The Last Jedi doesn't need to put in the work. And boy howdy did they absolutely not put in the work. At the end of The Force Awakens, Starkiller Base is destroyed. You might think that might put a dampener on things in the First Order's running. They might be struggling, a lot of resources poured into that thing and it's just gone up in a flash, they might be struggling now. Or at the very least, their grip on whatever holdings they have might be loosened. But no, they just reign supreme, I guess. We're not really told what they own, what they control. It feels so detached from the rest of the Star Wars universe, aside from a couple of characters. So the First Order reigns supreme without really having to put any work in. Come to think of it, I think that's what the writers intended. They wanted their story without putting any effort in, just like the First Order controlled most of the galaxy without putting any effort in. So yes, the first line of the first paragraph of the title crawl of the movie has its own problems. But we're just getting started. Number 9, the disappearing dagger. This is jumping from the very beginning to close to the very end of the movie, I admit. But I did say this wasn't going to be chronological, so whatever. After Snoke is killed by Kylo Ren when torturing Rey, Ren and Rey are forced to fight the Praetorian Guards. Now, there are a myriad of problems in this sequence that I will get to soon, but one I want to highlight right now, just as a quick mention, is the disappearing dagger. Rey's throwing down with this guy who splits his staff into 2 small daggers, right? So they're fighting in this shot that admittedly looks pretty cool until you get to a certain point. He gets her in an arm lock and, with 2 daggers, he logically should be able to just stab her in the back. But nope, the dagger straight up vanishes. Like, what? Okay, so now we know that the straight up editing is on the side of Rey now. Awesome. Now, Rey has her own problems that I'm going to get into very soon, as I mentioned. But this is oof. This is rough. This is so blatant that I'm shocked nobody else noticed this until it was pointed out. On Twitter, of all places. This is so blatantly clear that the editors will make absolutely sure that nothing befalls Rey. That literally all tension is now released. I do not feel scared or concerned for her well-being at all. It's such a small moment, but it raises so many eyebrows and so many questions. Where did it go? Did he drop it? If so, where did it land? Why didn't we see it drop? And why the fuck are the filmmakers insulting our intelligence by doing this so blatantly? So now we know that the editors are on the side of the protagonists. There's no tension. So I'm like, oh, if the dagger can get edited out in post, then I should not feel scared at all for these characters. Awesome. That's exactly what you want in your story. No tension. Gotcha. Number 8, on the topic of that scene, Snoke means absolutely nothing. Snoke is cartoonishly evil, shrouded in secrecy in The Force Awakens, now, blatantly leading the First Order. and he dies. Snoke did absolutely nothing in this franchise. We're told he's done things, but we're not shown anything, which means it means nothing. Snoke is a prop. He is a prop for Kylo Ren's development. That is literally all he is. I know certain characters have existed in that way before, but don't make it so obvious. He dies after having had no impact on the plot whatsoever. All he's been doing now is been set up for Kylo Ren. Such a waste of an incredible actor like Andy Serkis. And a character with a compelling backstory, potentially. But nope, it just got chucked out the window, forcing them to bring in Palpatine for the third one. Number 7, to branch off of Snoke, Kylo Ren absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. So, in The Force Awakens, Snoke sees him with his helmet on, and then in The Last Jedi, when he sees him in person, he requests he take his helmet off. In fact, he more than requests it, he straight up demands it. This raises a lot of questions, like how long have Kylo Ren and Snoke actually known each other? Surely Snoke's known Kylo longer than he's been wearing the mask. If so, why hasn't he pointed it out before? And then when he decides to kill Snoke, immediately following this, when he tries to recruit Rey and fails, he decides to just lead the First Order again. Like, what? I know cock blocking makes a man do bad things, but Jesus Christ, dude. This flipping and flopping is giving me an aneurysm. Commit to a side. I'm not just talking to Kylo, by the way, I'm talking to the writers. Actually decide what you want to do with your character. This flipping and flopping from one extreme to the other is just so nauseating. And again, a waste of a good actor like Adam Driver. I'm sensing a pattern here. Number 6, this one really requires only 2 words to say. Admiral Holdo. There is so much to talk about with Admiral Holdo. Physically, she looks like the most unimposing character ever. We're supposed to believe this is like a battle-hardened general in similar standing to Princess Leia. Or General Leia, rather. No, she looks like she's just come back from a business dance. Ultimately, this doesn't actually mean anything. It's just, how she looks physically. But still, it's quite funny to point out. No, what actually matters with regard to Holdo is her interactions with Poe. Poe Dameron is the most likable character out of this entire trilogy. And in The Last Jedi, he's made out to be something he's not. Hot-headed, brash, stubborn, yes, he is all these things, but whatever, at least he makes good decisions most of the time. So why does Holdo consistently withhold her plans from him? There is no smart reason for her to be doing that. The only reason she doesn't tell him is in service of the writing, so that the plan can be revealed in spectacular fashion, and Poe was shown to be in the wrong all along. When he wasn't. He was pushed to desperation because she didn't tell him anything. Really, dude, you're not even going to say, like, yeah, I've got a plan, I just don't want to tell anyone it right now? That would have placated him for a little while. Probably not, the whole day, but for a little while anyway. But nope, says nothing. And in fact insults him for even trying to get any information. And the film makes it like Poe's the villain here, when he's evidently not. He made the best judgments given the situations he was in. Yes, he lost an entire fleet, but if they hadn't taken out that dreadnought, it would have destroyed the whole fleet, including the Raddus. That's a massive loss of life. But it bought the Resistance time to come up with Holdo's stupid plan to begin with. Poe Dameron did absolutely nothing wrong, and Holdo is a stupid-ass character. And on that topic, the Holdo maneuver. This is controversial. After pretty much all hope is lost for the Resistance and they've all landed on Crate with the exception of Holdo herself, she commandeers the Raddus to fly at light speed through the First Order ships. A visually stunning moment, admittedly, but it also brings up issues. So if this has always been possible, why has nobody done it before? I always assumed it was just kind of an unspoken thing. I never really thought about it before until this movie actually did something with it. But now that the question's been raised, why has nobody done it before? Sacrifice one ship to take out the Death Star. Easy. Sacrifice one big ship to take out Starkiller Base. Easy. There is a quote in A New Hope that might explain some of this, but even still that's kind of shaky, considering the fact that they acknowledge it and, they do nothing with it. I don't know, it is kind of a complicated issue. I'm willing to hear some dissenting views on it. I just put it in here because it is worth discussing as a plot issue for the movie. Number 4, Force Ghost Yoda. Now, Force Ghost Yoda appearing was actually kind of cool, I'm not gonna lie. Seeing him and Luke interact, even though it was brief, was really nice to see. But him calling a bolt of lightning out of the sky to melt a tree that contains the sacred Jedi texts? Yeah, that raises some issues. Why, then, Has nobody done this before as a Force ghost? Why didn't Obi-Wan call down a bolt of lightning and just, strike Vader? Or strike Palpatine? I know it's space, but this is the Force. You can do anything, apparently. Like, physically touching stuff, I don't mind at all. That's fine. Because Obi-Wan Kenobi did that in Empire. He sat on that log. So that establishes that Force ghosts can touch things. But to call a bolt of lightning out of the sky, yeah, that raises a few more questions. Plus, has Yoda, conversed with Luke at all? Judging by Luke's tone of voice, it sounds like he hasn't. Like, hell, Yoda, why couldn't you have talked Luke out of killing Ben Solo? That might have been useful. What a way to waste another character. Number 3, Rey's powers and lightsaber abilities. Rey was already a controversial character from The Force Awakens, but The Last Jedi really kind of just cemented that. Considering the fact it takes place like a day after The Force Awakens, it really doesn't do a good job of explaining why she's so good at everything. She's naturally powerful. Right, okay. Well, I mean, in the past, we had people train for that sort of thing, except for Anakin, but that was the point of Anakin. And even he had his ass kicked a bunch of times. The fight in The Force Awakens between her and Kylo Ren is arguably where this started, because people say that he should have been able to put up a better fight, but he was also wounded and emotional considering the fact he just killed his dad. I don't buy those 100%, but the argument is there as to why Rey could best him at that moment. With the Praetorian Guards, the guys that are specifically hired to protect a high-ranking person, like Supreme Leader Snoke, they're probably hired due to their fighting prowess. Rey beats every single one she encounters, even though this takes place a day after The Force Awakens. So the argument about them being emotional and wounded does not apply here. She should have been stomped, but no, she actually performs better in this fight than Kylo does. She even saves his life close to the end. So this just once again cements the fact that I feel no tension whatsoever towards any peril Rey is put in, because I know she'll get out of it, because that's all Rey does. Her Force abilities as well, I mean, it's an entire video in and of itself, and plenty of people have made them. So I'll just reiterate what I said in my Force Awakens retrospection. Rey is a poorly written and underdeveloped wish fulfillment character who is somehow better than already established characters at their own game. And there we go. Yeah, Rey is definitely a Merisu. Number 2, Canto Bight. Oh, this is where most people point to. Even if they like the film, this is where a lot of people point to being the weakest part. Canto Bight is a mostly pointless subplot that does nothing to advance any of the characters that are included in it. In fact, it actively wastes them. Finn, once again, is a bit of an imbecile, pallying around with Rose, and she frees the animals but not the child slaves, and they destroy the casino despite the fact that it will be the child slaves that tidy it up. And the whole thing is an incredibly obvious slight against capitalism. It's so badly done. It is absolutely terrible. It also leads to Captain Phasma's death, ultimately. Another absolutely pointless character and a waste of a great actor. Hey, there's the pattern again, but I get the feeling it'll come up one more time. And that brings us neatly along to number 1. The film's handling of Luke. What were you thinking, Ryan? Seriously, you had Mark Hamill back as Luke Skywalker, a character nobody has seen in film for years, decades even. And you decide that what you'll do is make him a grumpy-ass hermit who does nothing throughout the film, whose motivation for the situation he's in doesn't make sense given his character. You make him slightly heroic at the end, despite the fact that he's really not being heroic, he's actually being more cowardly than ever, and then you kill him in a manner that is really iffy with logic to begin with. Like, Jesus bloody Christ. Congratulations, Ryan. You fucked him. You fucked Luke Skywalker so badly that Mark Hamill had to come out and say, I fundamentally disagree with just about everything you're doing. Ultimately, I don't think Ryan should have gotten away with it. Disney should have stepped in, said, maybe this will ruffle some feathers. But nope, they signed off on it, which means they're just as culpable. The Last Jedi's portrayal of Luke Skywalker is the most embarrassing character assassination most people have ever seen. It is up there, man. It is one of the worst you'll see, right alongside Daenerys Targaryen. My God, there's so much wrong with Luke's portrayal in this film. And that brings us to the end of this list. There were a few other honorable mentions like Rose Tico herself, and Phasma as a whole, like what was the point of view? And, the whole Princess Leia in outer space thing. But I figured, 10's a decent pocket to try and accomplish, so I'll just stick with that. If I missed anything else, or if you disagree, feel free to list it in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Cheers. Hello. I'm not actually sure you can hear me right now. Um, I have a lot of fun critiquing and exploring pieces of media that exist in your world, but I've got to admit, it takes a long ass time for me to do this, and a lot of work and a lot of effort to even come through to speak to you. So on that note, if you'd like to see more from me, then subscribe to my channel on here. Again, I'm not sure how long I can actually come through and upload these things to you, but I do my best, and I enjoy critiquing these works from your pitiful little world anyway. I'll try and find a way to further sustain the energies that it takes to propel me into your dimensions, so I'll keep researching that, but in the meantime, check out my other videos if you really, really, really liked me. Ah, shit. The portal's gonna close in a second now, so thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.